Understanding Mother Stories podcast with Adeline Dubreuil. Your 10 minutes to talk about mothering and matrescence. Hello, Mama. If you feel sometimes overwhelmed by the amount of toys all over the place, in the house, or even if it's contained to one room, but toys are spreading and all over the floor, and children don't want to clean up and you don't want to either, but you end up doing it anyway, then toy rotation might be for you. Toy rotation is a way to still have a bunch of different toys for different developmental skills, age, without having all the toys out and available to the child or children at all times. Let's be realistic here. No child needs a lot of toys to be available, especially all at once. It's actually counterproductive because it's way too overwhelming for the child to see and choose from, and they don't end up using them as intended. The clutter can also alter their behavior and yours and makes everyone's levels of stress or anxiety rise. So if you're up for working on less stress for everyone, let's talk on how you can make it happen. What toy rotation does is that it works on having some toys available for the child to choose and play with while the rest is put away, stored in a different space that is not available to the child. And that's the key. What is put away, they can't access, because then there's no point, because the child would get into what's stored and make a mess just as much. So it's really about making a plan to have toys ready to be used and others that are placed away where they can't necessarily access or even see them. So there are many different ways to do toys rotation based on your space, of course. Some families might have a small space, so toy rotation is essential, and the storage system is even more important in this case. But having a bigger space is not necessarily better because we tend to accumulate more and make it just as cluttered and overwhelming. So toy rotation is just as important in a bigger space than it is in a small space. So there are different aspects to look into. First, it's going to be your child's age, or I should more say like developmental phase, it would be more accurate. There's the storage system for it to be efficient, the how and when to rotate. And I will also have to talk about editing the amount of toys you own in your house. Then I will also talk about the issue of possible cumbersome, noisy toys that you don't want, but that family members might insist on offering to your child. So let's dive into these different aspects. So based on your child's age, you might have more or less toys available. Babies, for example, don't necessarily need toy rotation because you should not need many toys at this point in their life. And what you have can stay around since babies will keep using the same things but in different ways based on how they're evolving and learning. So let's say you have a set of wooden cubes, like they sell those like really nice wooden cubes by 10 or 12. You might just need one for the very young baby to explore. They are just going to learn how to use their hand to grab it. Then eventually it will go around their mouth. Then later on, you can make it to 2 or 3 cubes available when baby starts to stack. And then as they progress, you increase the amount of cubes to stack. So toys can evolve with babies usually. From a Montessori perspective, you should not need super cumbersome toys at this age, since the learning can happen with smaller toys around their hands and the development of their hands, and the rest is for them to have opportunities to hear people talk, sing, read to them, as well as being free to roam around to develop their motor skills. The biggest thing we had for our babies in our home was just the kind of wooden arch where you can hang any of the Montessori mobiles that evolve with them as they grow. Otherwise, everything that we had for our babies could pretty much be in a small container. We had a couple of sensory balls, wooden ring, things like this that they can keep using and rediscovering as they grow. Otherwise, babies just love being outside, listening to us talk and sing. They love to go for walks, be in nature. We let them free to move. So the best aspect for babies is just a safe space to be in. Now, when it comes to toddlers and the toddler years or even later, you might need toys that are made of multiple pieces, like set of blocks, and I'm talking like 50 or 100 blocks, or magnet tiles or Legos, and then you might have different puzzles and books and vehicles and such. So of course, you will have a few different choices for them to have available at all time. So this might be in a toy room, or maybe it's in the living room or their bedroom. It depends on your space. My rule for toddlers especially is to have about 6 to 8 choices available. No more than that at once. It can be displayed on a shelf or on cubbies, depending on what you have available for them. So when I say 6 or 8 toys, I mean activities, okay? And within these 6 or 8 activities, you will need a mix of open and closed toys. Ideally, you will have a balance of open and closed toys, but it doesn't have to be an equal 4 of one kind and 4 of the other one. It's going to change based on where your child is at and what you have available. So now let me explain just what I mean by closed and open toys. The closed toy or closed-ended toy have mainly one purpose and one specific skill that your child works on with while they use this activity, like a screwdriver activity, for example. This is a closed-ended activity with one main goal, and it develops focus and that specific skill, which is to use the screwdriver and the screws. An open-ended toy would be a big set of wooden blocks or magnet tiles where the child can use imagination and use it in many, many different ways while also developing concentration. The open-ended toys I like to have 2 or 3 usually for both my kids. And the rest is more like skill-oriented activities because then we also have a lot of outdoor time, which is also kind of an open-ended way to be. It's great for imagination, gross motor, and such. When it comes to gross motor especially, you can have gross motor that are more cumbersome activities indoor, like indoor swings for older kids or a pickler triangle for young toddlers, especially for people who live in harsher climate and need to be inside quite a bit more than others, or people who do not have a yard, okay, and that tend to be stuck inside a little bit more, because then otherwise you do depend on the adult taking the child to a playground. So it's a different ballgame. There is no one-size-fits-all approach anyway. It will depend on your situation, the size of your space, etc. My best thing to have for gross motor, and we use it a lot in the winter times here, is a gym mat. Like the IKEA one, for example, that folds and can be put away in 3 seconds, but they can use it so much to roll around, do some gymnastics, jump, and all kinds of other play. So we have had ours for years, and they still use it every day, especially around rainy days or when we get in the really harsh low temperature in the winter. Now, how do you know what to have out? Well, it should not be adult-led, okay? It should be based on your child's development and interest. So what we need to do to be able to have a good choice of toys out on our shelves or cubbies is we need to observe our children play, hear them talk, see where they're at, and get the toys that seem to fulfill the needs of this time. This is not the easiest to do, it seems, but I believe that if you watch your child's abilities and you discuss things with them, you will know what they need to develop and meet their needs where they are. It is always observation-based. I know it helps some moms to change the toys and rotate them on a weekly schedule. I don't see a problem in that if it's easier for you, but let's make sure that you don't remove things just because it's the day of the week, okay? You remove things that they're still using or interested in, then that's not going to work. So you really don't want to remove things that they are still using and interested in, because you would remove an interest and an opportunity for them to learn. So before you do your toy rotation, whenever you choose to do it, if it's on the same day every week or if it's just based on your child's interest, remove first what is not being used anymore, what hasn't been used in days. Put it away, store it, and see how much space you have to fill on your cubbies or shelves. And also look at if you need more of an open-ended kind of activity or a skill-focused activity. And think about what your child is interested or where they are in their development. And then you choose to add those specific things to your display. Now, if you have cubbies with drawers or big baskets, like, the size of an IKEA Kallax or a Trofas or something, beware, especially for young toddlers, of not having more than what your child and or you can handle cleaning up. You also need to take in consideration the amount it creates, the mess it might make, and you have to be okay with that. And also, I know it's great to enforce that children clean up their toys. I ask my children to do it too. But it's also okay to help them and make it a fun time together, okay? Because it can become a little bit of a power struggle, the cleaning up the toys all the time. So you really have to make sure that you're making the situation in the best interest for everybody. So sometimes helping them is just the way to go. Just put a song that you all like and tell them, okay, we need to be done cleaning up by the end of the song. And then you go at it. Find fun ways to make it happen instead of the constant nagging, which turns into a really, really frustrating time for everybody. Now, let's talk about the toys that are stored away from your child. This part is definitely the adult responsibility, though. I suggest you have a bin or bins. And if you have several bins, try to make the organization make sense to you. It can be by age or maybe by skills, maybe by the material, or even by color, whichever makes sense to you. And most importantly, use clear bins, the ones that you can see through, because it will save you tons of time looking through them and look for something that you can see in a see-through bin. If you already have bins and they are not the clear see-through kind, I suggest then that you label your bins with what's in for the same purpose, and it will make it easier for you to find what you need. These bins need to be kept away from children, so higher up, safely down on a shelf or in a cupboard or in a storage space or a crawl space, whichever works for you and your space. But you want to be the one having access to them. Then, whenever you're ready to rotate your toys, whether it's weekly or just when it's time to rotate because your child needs a change, then it is easier for you to do this switch. Your goal is to make your life and your cleanup less stressful and to keep your house organized while still meeting your child's needs with the proper toys. For some, it's essential. For others, it's not, okay? There's no perfect way to do this. As your children get older, you might have less toys or less activities, but they might be used over time. They might also take a whole bunch of space and need to be contained in smaller baskets or proper little container. So you just get them in and out as they are being used. You might also have some outdoor toys that only live outside for the summer. Either way, once you have a system you're happy with, just observe your children, listen to their interest, and see if it works with your parenting values and act accordingly. Now, the dreaded question of editing. For this one, I agree with the women from the Home Edit. If toys are outgrown by all children of the house and it hasn't been used in over a year and or it's broken, it needs to go. It can be given away. It can be sent to garbage or recycling, depending on what it's made out of. You cannot keep everything. Baby toys can be used by another baby in another home once your last child is older. I know there are feelings behind some of them, and there might also be family heirlooms that you might want to keep. But these should, be kept in a small, I emphasize small box, but otherwise just sell, give, or throw if this is broken. When children are older, you might want to involve them in the process of editing by respect for their toys, especially if some of these toys have been given to them for their birthdays or Christmas. So technically they don't belong to you, but to them. So that is for you to decide on how to handle this with your children. Now, to finish, let's talk about the issue of cumbersome, noisy toys that we don't necessarily want in our house, but that family members might insist on offering year after year. We do have to be grateful for the loving people who gift us or our children these activities. But sometimes it's too much for our space, or it adds to our stress, or even worse, it goes against our parenting values. And that's a big no-no. So please, If this is a situation you are in, go and listen to episode 34, where I have talked about this specific problem. And I will just say one thing today. You are in charge of what makes it in and out of your home. Grandparents are not in charge unless they live with you. So if they're not in charge, So if you can't stand noisy toys that they have offered to your children, or if you lack the space for something that is too big, don't hesitate to put boundaries and to tell these grandparents to keep these toys at their place for the child to play with at their place. That's not easy, but it's also about boundaries. So here it is. Here they are, your rules to follow for toy rotation and for a way less stressful toy situation. Until next time, Mama. Hey, Mama, would you like to have some more clarity on the kind of mother you want to be, or you need help to get where you want to be? Then go to omama.ca and grab my free journaling challenge. I will help you every single day get where you want to be.